So I'll just get us started, and I'll say good afternoon to you all. So I'm Michelle Corneyberry. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at Alternatives Federal Credit Union. We have a big group expected today. So Grace why am I messing up your name? Grace Rich-Walski, who is my colleague in marketing on the marketing team, will be working together as co-hosts to let you in. We'll be making sure to troubleshoot and watching the chat and making sure that we get to as many people as possible. We know we have a big group, and we want to let you know that if your question doesn't get answered or you don't get to speak, we will continue to reach back with you. Please email us. Eric will make himself available to answer your questions. And these are ongoing conversations, so this is not your only chance, but definitely know that we'll keep an eye to time and get you in and out on time. I'm really glad that you came. This is a series of talks and roundtables that Eric will head off throughout 2021, and you'll hear from him in a moment. We're really thankful for this big showing. We had about 62 people registered. We'll see how many people we have. We are thankful for your interest in this topic, for all the elders, the teachers, the healers, the leaders, the grassroots activists, the workers, the activists, the visionaries and dreamers who really make our community great and make all things possible. And we're really appreciative of your support of us at AFCU. We're really glad we could come together today and break virtual bread in a conversation about the ways in which diversity, equity, inclusion, and that which we are referring to as DEI, will sustain not just AFCU, but our entire community. And I just wanted to give thanks and praise to those ancestors that many of you know, and we've lost a lot of great people who've transitioned. And so in honor of them, the great work of Jackie Melton Scott, who transitioned a couple of years ago, and I wear her scarf on my head today. She was outside of BJM, and she was taking care of my daughter because she's a great educator and really committed to DEI work. And I looked at her scarf and I was like, that's really beautiful. And she's like, here, have it. And I thought, I don't know if I would ever do so. I don't know if I could take that. And she's like, of course you can, and you should have it. So in her honor today, I bring up her name. Of course, we lost Kirby Edmonds way too soon, Satomi Hill, and so many other folks in our community who really dedicated not just a moment, but their lifetime to social justice and diversity, equity, inclusion, and so many other visionaries in our community who do that each and every day. So we're really thankful for your work. We're thankful for the gift of your time. And without further ado, I'm going to pass the virtual mic over to Eric Levine, who is the CEO of AFCU.
Well, thank you very much, Michelle. Hello, everyone, and thank you all so much for zooming in for this DEI listening session. I'm sure you're all here because we believe diversity, equity, and inclusion is so important that we all must promote it in our workplaces, cultures, and communities. Recent dramatic and horrific events have turned the spotlight on systemic racism, discrimination, intolerance, and violence. And as a community, we need to work together to talk about these issues so nothing avoids the scrutiny of justice and equity, and so we can act. I believe the adage that sunlight is the best disinfectant, that if we air out the issues rather than keeping them behind closed doors or sweeping them under the carpet, then justice will have a chance to prevail. And so we want to hear from the community about how alternatives can embed DEI as much as possible into our services, products, all we do with the community and with our staff. Alternatives has aspired to promote DEI for many years, but in a racist world with unconscious and conscious biases, we know we need to do better. We need to do better. Diversity in every sense of the word has always been important to alternatives. We are a diverse economic justice organization. We exist to provide inclusive access to financial products, services, and education to underserved and marginalized people and communities. Half of our senior management team are women and includes people of color and some who identify as LGBTQIA. We started a diversity team about 15 years ago, made up of all levels of staff. And just last year, to redouble our efforts, we started a DEI task force made up of board and senior management staff. It includes our board president, Jessa Edwards, as well as another director, Christopher Teitelbaum, Chief Marketing Officer, Michelle Courtney Berry, who is our moderator today, Chief of Community Development, Carl Graham, who after a long career will be retiring soon, our new Chief Lending Officer, James Hunter, Chief Operations Officer, Riley Shane, Chief Technology Officer, Larry Honigbaum, Chief Experience Officer, Christina Kane, Strategic Digital Communications Manager, Grace Rachowski, and myself as CEO. We will continually explore all we can do, and we have already discussed many things, including diversity training and opportunity, outreach to diverse communities and partners, creating a multicultural and welcoming environment, both internally and externally. But I'm not here to continue listing all that we do and aspire to do. I'm here to hear from the community, to learn what you have to say about how alternatives can better meet your expectations about DEI, what you'd like us to do more of, what you may want us to change or add, to relay an experience we can learn from. And with that, I'll turn it over to Michelle to moderate comments from this wonderful group of attendees. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. So how it will work is please use your raise hand function if you have something that you want to say aloud, or please use the chat function. And Grace and I will be checking the chat, and we can read back those comments. If you don't want to air them with your voice, you can air them with your words. So the floor is really yours. There's no topic that's off limits, and we just ask you to ask us questions or share experiences and give us your good thinking around this subject matter. Thanks. And I'll also be reviewing anything that was sent to me by email. So anyone?
Hi, yeah. My name is Sarah Wiederkrantz. I work with Second Wind Cottages. We work with people who've been homeless or at risk. And I've taken the MoneyWise class, and I tried to bring one of our residents to it. And what was pretty clear was that the level that it's at is beyond, it was just too overwhelming to be talking about the things at the level we were talking about. What was needed was something that was pretty basic, sort of the ABCs of how you think about money and how money is used and where injustice comes in the lending system, in the borrowing system, and the check cashing system and things like that. So that's one thing. And the other is that we have a separate checking account at Tompkins County Trust because a lot of our guys are unbanked and actually have already wrecked their or they feel like they've wrecked their chances at alternatives. And it's $5 for them to cash a check at alternatives if we write a check on our account. So those are my two comments.
I have something to say.
Okay, well, let's
Hello,
do it.
can you hear
Yes,
me?
I see you. For some weird glitch, the name Jessa is appearing as your name. And so if you rename yourself, I know you're not Jessa. I know who you are. Let's do this. Let's have Eric respond to Sarah, and then we'll have you, Miss Olivia.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you. So Sarah, thank you for that great feedback. Out of necessity with MoneyWise, we had to transfer it to an online class. And in that process, we needed to cut it down, a lot of the content down to be more basic, kind of just as you describe. And we have gotten some very good feedback about that. So I think that you're right on the money with that feedback, and I appreciate that. Regarding the check cashing, members can cash checks for free, of course, and I would be interested to see if those people you were talking about could apply or reapply for membership, and to get in touch with us to see if that's a possibility. We do have second chance accounts, fresh start accounts, and I'm not sure if they were denied an opportunity or if they feel that they don't have it, but that is something that we can definitely speak with them about in the future. And we would appreciate the opportunity to do that.
Thank you, Eric. Miss Olivia.
Yes, hi, good afternoon.
Good
We had a challenge trying to get in. And the clicks that you had, man, could you put Reverend Olivia Armstrong? I was a previous board member of Alternative in 2018. I think that was about 2018. And I have a lot to say, but I'm not going to say it all right now. But what I would suggest, maybe have a community of African-American people from the community. And maybe you could facilitate it, Michelle, and just have a meeting just for people of color, because maybe everybody is not going to say everything that they want to say here, or maybe it could be two people, facilitating that meeting. The CEO, I remember the CLO, James, Mr. Hunter, who I haven't met yet. And there's a lot of inclusion. There has been a big improvement. I heard Eric name about 8 African Americans in top positions, in which in 2018 that wasn't the case. So I was thinking about just having that special meeting just for African American and maybe Hispanics. We could all meet together just to hear if there's anything different from what you might be hearing now and what they might have to say then.
Thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Olivia.
We have a question from Thomas Hubble in the chat. I would love to see a continuation of the First Home Club model. Is there a revenue stream to fund that program, targeting marginalized community members for a path to home ownership?
Yes, this is a very exciting new thing that we have coming. We just secured grant financing from the Park Foundations, whereby we will be working with numerous community partners for an IDA program specifically targeted at the BIPOC community for asset ownership, both home ownership and business ownership, as well as other things. Christina Kane, who is with us and is leading that leg of the credit union and negotiated and was involved in developing that. Chris, would you like to fill in some more details about that?
Thank you. Yeah, it is just as what Eric was saying, and I also want to give a shout out to both Carl and Grace as well, who was really the drivers behind securing this funding. So, but Tom, yes, you're absolutely right. We got IDAs were not a part of our curriculum for a couple of years because of some federal funding. So we were able to secure some local funding specifically for homeownership as well as business IDAs. And just so you guys know, what an individual development account is a matched savings account. So folks can save up some money, and for every dollar saved, there's dollars that are matched to it. So for home ownership, for instance, folks can save up some money, roughly $2,000. for either businesses or home ownership. But what we can do is we'll do a match for home ownership to up to $20,000 for Tom. This is a real down payment to help people get home ownership here in Tompkins County. And so not only are we getting folks access to capital to acquire those assets to help them build wealth, but we're doing it away with right now we have about 8 community partners that we're going to be partnering with around the community in order to help that asset ownership grow. But with our partners, with the match savings, with our lending department, what we're going to do is really try to break down the barriers to asset building, specifically for people of color in our community. So stay tuned. We're going to be making a big announcement really soon. So, but Tom, thank you for that question. And Michelle and Grace, did I miss anything?
No.
And I'm sorry for not calling on Carl for that. I noticed he's in the audience. I didn't see his face.
Eric, I have a question, and I want to also follow up with Reverend Armstrong's suggestion. That is really a good one, and it's on our list of really important things to do, which is to understand that as much as we have collaboration and we do talk with one another in mixed groups, it is really important to know that sometimes there are things that we just tend to say with each other, and finding a way to build that safety and have that conversation, and particularly with changes in lending. And the historic changes that you do see at Alternatives are like really important, and we are really proud of that work. And so I definitely know that there's a continued effort to talk about how we can engage voices and to hear about the things that we can improve and the things that we can grow on that are working and the things that just haven't worked. And Eric has been really upfront about that. So that's a really great note, and it's something that we've been talking to community partners about, helping us set up between Southside and GIAC and other, and Multicultural Resource Center and other folks in the community who will help us promote that evening and or daytime talk, which is just talking to Black people, particularly in light of the Black Lives Matter movement and the things that have happened historically forever, but particularly more light being brought upon and shown on the incredible disparities that still exist and plague us. And so finding a way to have that conversation, and particularly under the lens of finances, which has been such a barrier and a barrier to success for people of color, particularly Black people who are trying to, definitely like myself, like try to understand this financial system that really had excluded us for so long. So we're saying the table is set. We don't want that to be. James has a lot of new plans and programs, and I think maybe it would be good too to talk about, for some of you who had a chance to meet James, we did a couple of forums a couple of months ago where we introduced James to the community. We didn't assume everybody saw them. We've been doing a lot of advertising about new policies and programs and lending. So James, I think what I'll do is just turn it over to you to say hi to folks and some of the ideas that you have around that, you know, for folks who have felt excluded, and then for just all of us here in this conversation to know what you're thinking about.
Well, thank you very much, Michelle, and greetings to everyone who joined this important chance to just have open conversation. I'm a firm believer that poverty has no color, but at the same time, it's important that we are intentional about what we're doing here at Alternatives. I've been here for going on 4 months now, and what we've come across is that it's important to look at the policies that we have that dictate the output that we can make. And one thing I've learned about policy is that it tells you what you're doing or what you're not doing. And in that, we've had opportunities to where we can improve upon what we're trying to output by looking at the policies we have to make sure that they're conducive of the times we're living in. As we all know, COVID has impacted us tremendously. We also have things that are going on that disenfranchised people are experiencing at extreme rates now. It's becoming an actual adage of the have and the have-nots. In reference to home ownership, I'm very adamant about putting first-time home buyers in the homes. I know people that are paying rent right now to the tune of a mortgage. And my job is to try to turn those rent payments into mortgage payments. 2 ways that I'm trying to do that is, one, working with the Federal Home Loan Bank of New York to try and get some money set aside for first-time home buyers that we can use to help layer with things that you heard from Chris Kane, where we can have money set on top of money that can be used to make a robust down payment. As many of you know, the biggest difference between people having homes and not being able to have homes is down payment and closing costs. So if we can mitigate that gap by giving money for people to have closing costs covered, and we also can do the second thing I'm thinking about, which is to come up with a way to do 100% financing and introduce that to the community for people who are first-time home buyers. We can literally bridge the financial wealth divide and put people into homes that are historically paying rent to the tune of a mortgage.
Thanks, James. There's a question from Sarah. Has Alternatives considered partnering with Family Court, Drug Court as a possible financial educational partner? So clear that broken relationships with money is often based on, a broken relationship with money is often based on, or often part of unstable home situations.
I personally am not aware that we've made that outreach, but that is a really good idea for us to talk about. I don't know if anybody else here is aware if we've made that connection.
Hi, I'm Chris. I wanted to let you guys know that we, thanks to Michelle, we have this long list of community partners that we're reaching out to. So I don't remember when the last time we spoke to those two organizations, but I'll take a look at our community list and make sure that we do. So thank you guys so much for that suggestion.
I'm wondering if that potential of financial education piece that Sarah's mentioning wouldn't dovetail off with the connections we've made with the reentry loan program. And some of those connections in the community would seem to dovetail perfectly there.
Yeah, that's a great connection.
I have a question, Eric, for you that came in from email. Some of the, then I don't think they're referring to us, but they're saying like some of the organizations that represent DEI or put up DEI mantras are only performing performatively. How have you managed to shift away from a performative commitment to Black Lives Matter and DEI to something tangible and real? And would you outline some of those steps?
Sure. First of all is talking about it, leaning into uncomfortable conversations, making a safe place for staff to talk about it. We supported a affinity group for staff of color to get together and talk about issues that are important to them and how we can support them, because not all of our policies that we have at the credit union necessarily have them in mind, and they can inform us on how we can come up with better policies. And we also have supported other groups that allow all levels of staff to join, such as our Underserved task force, where we can get together and outreach into the community to community partners of color and diverse community partners. We have also contracted for our own education with Paula Ianniti, who has given us some excellent trainings that we're working on following up on, and will additionally contract with her to help us build some accountability around those. Some of them included microaggressions, retaining and hiring diverse talent, and eliminating conscious and unconscious bias in hiring. We have started a mentorship program, well, kind of a connection program, and especially during COVID, you know, it raises the stress doubly to help staff get not only acclimated into the organization, but to feel welcome. That inclusion piece of DEI is so important because I think for a while we've done a good job of bringing on diverse talent, but you know, historically we look back and we didn't have a great track record of retaining diverse talent. And so that's really where we're turning our attentions to. And currently we're also having a transition in our HR director, who's retiring, and we have put together a really excellent search team for that, who put a lot of emphasis on somebody with a DEI background who can help put DEI in the very DNA of everything we do for staff. But aside from staff, it's also about what we do for the community, of course. And what we do is all about inclusion, but when we talk about providing inclusive access to credit and transaction services to the community, to people who are left behind by the mainstream financial industry, we recognize that there have been periods of time when we did that better than other periods of time. And right now, we're really committed to making sure that DEI is front and center in our policies. And as James mentioned, we're going through our lending policies and making sure that they're not unnecessarily exclusive and that we can do the best for people. But one of the most important things we're doing is what we're doing right now is listening to our community tell us what we can do, because we can sit around in a room and talk about what we can do. We can read stuff on the internet and books, but you are our community, and you who we want to hear from. And many of you are people who've had experience with us, and feedback is the greatest gift. And we just really appreciate what you can share with us to help us do better with DEI.
Thank you, Eric. I'm going to pass to Grace.
Yeah, we have some comments from Martha Smith. She says, excellent idea from Miss Olivia. Carl Graham visited Calvary Baptist Church before COVID and spoke about services at Alternatives. It was very successful because Carl is well known in the Ithaca community by many people. Since Carl is in the audience, perhaps he can speak to that. I say successful because Carl reached out to Calvary and said that to me personally, that Alternatives was being proactive.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. I do appreciate your kind words. The feedback from community partners has always been very important to us. As someone mentioned earlier, financial education is one of the keys, and I want to stress just one of the keys of addressing some of the inequalities within our community and the broader nation. We are doing this more than we have in the past. We're being more intentional. But for several years, we tried to do this, is to reach out to community groups, particularly groups of color, to say, here are the services that are at Alternatives that can help people get a handle on their finances, to acquire assets, as was mentioned earlier, individual development accounts, match savings programs, to give people money to help them get a business or get into a home, or provide education for themselves or their dependents. As an example, a concrete example, we just finished in January a series of workshops, and someone, I believe it was Sarah, mentioned earlier about MoneyWise. We just finished a series of workshops with a group of Black women at the Southside Community Center, the Financial Freedom Collective. And the series was so successful, the women decided to continue to meet and to meet quarterly. So actually next week, there's a Zoom meeting that's been set up, and we will do a check-in. And we really focused on helping them achieve their financial goals. And that is something that we are now going to roll out. We're thinking again about Calvary Baptist Church and their financial ministry. We can say to the folks at Calvary Baptist, you get a group of people together and we will put a course together around their goals to help them reach their financial goals. We're going to take that to GIAC. We're going to continue with another cohort at Southside Community Center. So we are being very intentional. Chris mentioned a little bit earlier about the large grant that we received. This is really unprecedented for this area. We received the largest grant that the Park Foundation has given locally in their history to help specifically people of color purchase homes and start businesses. Once the program is over, and we expect it to take 4 to 5 years, we will have helped 26 people purchase homes here in Ithaca and Tompkins County, and 50 plus people start businesses. That's a concrete example of the type of things that we're doing and the type of thing that's needed to help people acquire assets, to narrow the wealth gap, and really stop displacement, people moving out of the city because it's much too expensive to live here, renting or owning. So we are doing a lot of things that we think will benefit the community. But as Eric said, we want to hear from our community members. So we're always open to those conversations, and because there are things that we may miss. So all of us, and I know I can speak for all of us and staff here, want to hear from you, our community members. We are open to your suggestions.
Hello, this is Karen Yearwood. There was I think an article in one of the local papers recently about an investment group, a female investment group, and I'm wondering if alternatives would offer that too, something similar to that, and investments in stocks and how to teach individuals how to better be equipped with their financial package.
Well, currently, we do not have somebody on staff who is qualified to provide that service. However, as part of our MoneyWise class, which is given at least 4 times a year, and we're talking about expanding it to more times a year because it is done remotely and in a smaller group, there is one full session dedicated specifically to that type of investing with your values, investing in socially responsible organizations, and how to invest over time for retirement and asset building. But the idea of being able to offer this service outside of that class is something that we have been discussing. We have somebody on staff who's actually interested in perhaps getting some more education about it. So there could be more to come on that.
Thanks. Eric, there's a question on what is the Underserved Task Force?
The Underserved Task Force was a grassroots effort among our staff, people who were mainly not management, but some middle management, who were interested in talking about what the needs are in the community by actually getting out into the community and not only meeting with community partners, but tabling at events and spreading the word about what are the products and services that Alternatives offers and can help them with, but also learning what are the needs in the community, because the only way we're going to innovate is to learn what the needs are in the community. And so this is just a group of staff who are very mission oriented and wanted to do something for themselves, for the organization and the community. And it's just been wonderful.
Thanks, Eric. I see a question from Ann Rhodes.
Hi, thank you. I'm concerned about the jobs pipeline for people of color and low-income people in Tompkins County. And through the work that I do with cooperative extension, I'm aware that the changes that are coming in response to climate change will require a lot of upgrade of all the buildings and homes in the city and the town of Ithaca for energy efficiency, and also to get off of natural gas and install electric heat pumps. We have probably 200 jobs coming down the pipeline within the next couple of years. And if we don't have a local jobs pipeline to get people of color and low-income people who are in our community to be ready for those jobs, they're going to go to Binghamton and Syracuse and Buffalo and Rochester, and all that money is going to leave the county. So I'm just reminding myself of what Kirby Edmonds was saying about what a manageable task it is to alleviate poverty in Tompkins County if we just put our minds to it. And this feels like one of the a piece that could really possibly make a difference. These would be good paying living wage jobs. They would be ongoing. Even if we got 200 people and did all the homes in the town of Ithaca and the city of Ithaca, eventually it'll be all the municipalities in the county, and then it'll be Cortland and Cayuga and Schuyler. And so these are not short-term jobs. These are long-term, good paying jobs. And I don't know what AFCU's role could be in helping to support that kind of jobs pipeline, or possibly the creating co-ops so that people aren't even just working for somebody else, but they're actually keeping all the wealth within a worker-owned co-op. But I would love to talk with somebody at AFCU about how we might be able to support that kind of process going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Michelle, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Eric. I was saying, so we'll tie Ann in with a contact person here, correct? You will identify a person and we'll get back in touch with you and have a person that you can chat with. Okay.
Sure.
Grace.
I have another question from Thomas Hubble. Are there organizations that reach local Indigenous communities to help them get into the IDA programs?
Yes, we work with many community organizations, but the new IDA program, which was just described, actually such great organizations are written right into the program. And I think I can read you some of them. We have Community Leaders of Color, Southside Community Center, Ithaca Housing Authority, Tompkins Community Action, Business Leaders of Colors, Calvary Baptist Church, to name some. I'm sure we'll work with GIAC and others as well. We also work with other organizations regarding our reentry loan program. And we're always looking for more organizations to outreach with, because we know that that's the best way to reach them with how we can help them, because they don't necessarily believe that regular advertising applies to them. It really needs to be through conversations and introductions.
Thanks, Eric. Reverend Armstrong.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can't. You can hear me now. What I wanted to say is that I hear all the different things. I've been around Ithaca since 1990. My first job was GIAC. I worked at GIAC. I worked at Southside Youth Director. So I just sounding like this. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, I didn't know what DEI was. Is this something that was and me? And now I'm involved. Well, I'm not involved in a lot, but I live in Tioga County. That's about 40 minutes from here. I'm the executive director of the Rainbow Healing Center of America. I have 5 board members from Tompkins County. So I'm kind of connected with Tompkins County. They come here to help. We are an alternative healing organization. We've been existing since 2001. We got our 503c 2006. And what I wanted to say, I don't know it all, but I know a lot of what goes on, even in alternative in other places, because I'm really connected. And I think that what maybe really needs to happen, I'm just going to push this a little bit more, to have a real talk with people, with African American people, people of color, as far as the practices of alternative. Like I said, I was a board member, so I know some have changed. And I would like to be part to facilitate that, because a lot of people, a lot of African American people really don't want to talk, to tell what they have experienced. I think I talked to a couple of people there, and me walking both walks of life. I have a social work degree. I'm a Reiki master like Michelle. I have degrees, but I also came from the streets, which was my best education that I feel that I have. And in order to really to get down to the real nitty gritty and talk that uncomfortableness, I feel that people who have been in, like I said, I worked in practice all the organizations that y'all mentioned in Tompkins County. And I think to really get down to some home, really, really, really real talk is to have that meeting where people are going to feel really, really uncomfortable. I don't want to, take the time and bring all of, what's going on here. I would like to have that special meeting with us as a community. Like I said, I lived off and on since 1990. I just moved from there in 2018 from Tompkins County. And I keep up with what's going on. So I'm really, I hope y'all don't put that meeting on the back burner. And I would like to be a paid facilitator to order to do that, because everybody else get paid, but the people who really knows what's going on, y'all want them to volunteer. Okay, always getting, like volunteers for them. And I had an issue with that before with alternative, but I'm not going to get into it. I think I know reasonable, I have a lot of knowledge. I got a nice, certificate from you all for being on the board, and I left because I had moved to South Carolina, but I'm back for good now. The businesses help the Rainbow Healing Center. We established a acre of land here through the legal services and things like that. So you'll have really, helped the organization. But there's more, real deep more. So if y'all want to do, you want to start it as soon as you can. I also have an organization called Women Against Poverty, which we just got our DBA last week. And I am president of that organization. So, when you're ready to have that talk and want to talk, please include me.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing. I did want to, I'd be remiss in not mentioning that the CEO, so Eric, convened a working group. It was called kind of Healing Relationships in Black Community. Carl and I chaired that effort. We were able to, one of the things that we want to do, right, is we want to make it so that, and I'll say it plainly, Black people, when they have concerns, will obviously go to Black people who work at alternatives. And we also want to make sure that white people who work at alternatives hear those concerns as well. And we build that bridge that it goes directly. Because there are times when people would have concerns and they would tell me, I'm like, well, that's not an area I even have control over, right? But let's make sure that we get you to the right person. And so the CXO and I did have sustained conversations with GIAC. We were able to log concerns that people had raised with Carl, particularly Black people and their experiences with us, sometimes favorable, of course, and then sometimes not, because that's just what happens in business, and it happens when we don't always understand the perspective that folks are bringing. So we'll be that bridge, but we want to make sure Eric gets that information. So Carl and I convene that. We work with Chris Kane. We talked to dozens of folks. We made sure that we kept the lines of communication open. So I had a number of conversations with Black people that I know in the community, like what's worked, what isn't working, what would you like to see change, what barriers did you face? So we collected that data and information and then made a running list of those concerns and also the positive feedback, right? And put that document together, which laid the groundwork for Eric then diving in deeply by having that sustainable DEI committee that's not a one and done. So when you hear about the DEI efforts that we have here, those are going to go on through the life of the organization, but we would be remiss in saying like they are different things. The heart of Alternative's mission is a DEI mission. So our very mission itself is diversity, equity, and inclusion, and about social justice and economic justice. So how can we make sure that the experiences that folks of color and other folks who have felt left out of the system, right? So we're talking about impoverished white folks and impoverished people of color. How can we help them with financial tools, education, to know that challenge credit is a place that you can bring that challenge credit here. We're not like other banks and financial institutions that will turn you away. And if you didn't have the experience you were hoping for, it's true, you'll tell us. I know that people are going to tell you, Miss Livy, they're going to tell me, they're going to tell Carl, they're going to tell James, but how can we also make sure they tell Eric? Right? So that Eric hears firsthand. So because sometimes we get nervous too, because we're the messengers of this news, right? So we want to make sure that we are not just the bridge builders and the messengers, but that Eric in forums like this and other, interactions hears it firsthand, that people know him, that they feel just as comfortable picking up the phone and calling Eric that they would people of color who work on staff or people who are LGBTQIA or any other traditionally marginalized community. So that's the conversation we've been having for over a year with people. We say, don't hold back, tell us what worked, what didn't work. We've been talking at the executive team level about those things. Carl's been bringing them forward. So Eric has a huge document of information that he used now to formulate the task force and to have these conversations that we're having today. So just to let you know that we know that that's going on. We know that people will sometimes feel more comfortable talking to you or me or Carl, and we want to make sure that they also talk to Kevin and they talk to Eric and they have those relationships. And Kevin's been doing a lot of work with building those lists and sharing that information. So that database that you hear about was us taking all the community comments, concerns, feedback, organizations, and building that platform so that we can now make sure when we have special events or we know that there's new funding opportunities, we're mailing to that much wider list, and we're mailing to people who've been critical of us so that they can hear from us too. And so there's no holds barred on the type of communication we wish to receive is as open and honest and raw as you say. We've heard it and we encourage more of it, if that's helpful. And we'll talk about the future for having more of those conversations for, as you're saying, for just Black people to be able to talk to folks.
Okay, just one thing. I've been a member since the 90s, okay? So, and I haven't, when I came back, I've been a member since I moved down south in South Carolina since the 90s. So this is my first time hearing about DEI. All the different groups and organizations that you were saying, I personally haven't heard about it. So I don't understand why that was. Okay, so I hear what you're saying. I think I'm a workable person, could work, and I have no problem going to Eric or going to anybody, and Eric knows that because he kind of knows me. So maybe if I could get some of the information, and is the information you're getting, is it still the same thing and you're still trying to work on stuff from the 90s or the early 2000s? Is it still the same thing, or is it new stuff that's coming together that y'all have worked on and made a change, right? And so is it new stuff, or is the same thing that keeps coming and coming and coming? I have talked to Carl about some things also, so I totally understand, and I'm with you. I love alternatives. That's my favorite place to be. Favorite, big thing. I have other accounts down south, but alternative is my main one that I use. So I'm not I'm just feeling like if it's if things have changed, I don't know about it. And like I said, I've been a member since the 90s. So
Okay.
if, if anything, and I just reach out to me, this is my first time. I don't know how long DEI has been existing, but this is the first one that I have
Yep.
heard
Well,
about.
we'll sidebar, Grace and I will sidebar with you to make sure that we have your updated contact information. We have been mailing regularly to members about some of these new changes and, and older things like the DEI thing. We might be calling it that, but the mission has always been that. So wherever we need to continue to stay on point with the mission, we will. And I will get in touch with you after this meeting to make sure we have your correct contact information. And we will make sure we send you anything that we have sent out so you feel caught up. And I apologize if you didn't get that information because it's going to member email, and we'll make sure we have the correct information for you.
It's
Okay.
the same thing.
All right. Well, we'll check. All right.
Same.
Well, we'll make sure to forward you anything that we sent out that you have missed.
Okay. Thank you, dear.
Thank you, Olivia.
Thank
Miss
you.
Olivia.
So do we have any other hands raised, Grace, or anything that you've seen? I don't know if I missed anything or anyone.
I just got a comment from Laura Butenbaum. To follow on Ann's comment, does Alternatives as a financial cooperative envision supporting cooperative enterprise development in Tompkins County as a way to build community wealth alongside individual wealth, worker-owned co-ops, producer co-op, housing co-ops, etc.?
Well, I'll say that those are great community partners for us to work with. We have a lot to offer in terms of education and inclusive access to lending and productive use of credit and transaction accounts. We, depending upon what these organizations are trying to accomplish, we have many different angles in terms of supporting starting businesses and financial education, from group sessions to individual financial counseling. We can do a lot with cooperatives and our community partners. And I'm not sure if that answered exactly what your question was. Please feel free to follow up if there was something more specific that you were looking for.
Eric, I have a question that came in. What do you think is the most challenging thing about sitting in discomfort? So someone's referencing like how talking about DEI stuff always leads to having to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So person's asking you, like, what's the most difficult part about that?
The most difficult part of it is overcoming the reflex to be defensive and wanting to try and justify or explain something that has happened in the past, when really we need to look forward and take the information. As I said, all feedback is a gift, and to just use it to do better. I know it is a challenge sometimes to not try and dig in and find out, what could have been our justification for that, because that's not nearly as important as the information that we're receiving. Thank you for that question.
We're coming to the end of our time together, but not the end of time to have these important community conversations. And we're thankful for those of you who contributed, who just showed up and were holding a place for others. I know that a lot of people had last minute things come up and weren't able to attend. We do record these sessions. We then put them up in social media on our Facebook page and make them publicly accessible. And we also follow up. The marketing at alternatives.org is a place that you can write and you can share anything that comes up post this conversation, things you wish you had added, what you'd like to suggest. I mean, we rely on you, and we're really thankful for this community. It's a very unique community, and certainly a special place. In the places that we serve, we want to serve more, we want to serve well, and you have a lot of people here who may not have introduced themselves, but that are part of senior team that really commit themselves. I work with these folks every day, and we're always talking about how can we improve and how can we continue to reach and grow and be sustainable. We do that through you. We do that through your kind attention and your support, and we're really appreciative of you. Colin wrote, to piggyback on Laura's comment, it would be great to see AFCU explicitly help promote co-ops as a business model that is far more community oriented. Eric, if you want to respond, and then Leslie has a question.
Oh.
Do you want Leslie to go and you'll respond to co-ops next? Want to do that?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Leslie. Hi, Leslie.
Hello, everyone. Gosh, I wasn't going to say anything, but I'm here to learn, and AFCU is my bank. I wouldn't be in my home 20 years ago if it wasn't for actually Carol Chernikoff at the time. I just wanted to share in support of collaboration and cooperation. I'm a beloved friend and fan of Michelle Berry's work, and I have shared with her that I own and run a center about 10 minutes from downtown, for those of you who don't know, called the Treatment Center. And recently I've been in conversation with her around wanting to provide this space for our community. I am, DEI at heart. I'm single staff, so it's me and me. But, inclusive, all these elements that everybody is addressing and really trying to promote change for, particularly at this time, are very dear to my heart. So I know transportation might be an issue, but what Ms. Ophelia was suggesting and others around having these really in-depth personal kinds of gatherings with COVID, I know that's difficult in times and places, but I would like to offer our center for that. I'm just putting on record if for any and all of you, if that is something that would help support all this moving forward. So I just wanted to say that.
Leslie, that is so generous and nice. We really appreciate it. And once we are no longer socially distancing, that would be great for us to be able to get together more personally to be able to do that.
Well, I have a 40 by 60 foot ballroom with a large ceiling fan. It's not really a ballroom, but lots of dancing has happened in there. And if you look on my website, there are pictures and video, but it's extremely spacious with fans. And so you could actually gather safely, a group of people there in the meantime, because obviously we're not out of the woods on any of this. And so if something in the immediate you want to make happen in a slightly larger space than you might have in your bank environment, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Any of you.
Thank you. It's a beautiful space too. Yes, it's breathtaking. So
I'm on an expensive sabbatical, but things are getting better.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that offer and those comments. Regarding cooperatives, Alternatives is a cooperative. We are part of the cooperative movement, and we look to partner with cooperatives and bring our core competencies to whatever cooperatives are trying to accomplish. And we want to be there whenever we can be relevant to whatever is going on in the cooperative movement or assisting cooperatives in getting going. So if there's any specific cooperatives that would like to reach out to me, I'd be happy to see where we can go from there.
Great. So thank you, Eric. We're at time. So Eric, I don't know if you had anything that you wanted to say in conclusion. We do have everyone's contact information. We will be alerting you of future ways to engage. We welcome your ongoing feedback and information, and we really thank you for the gift of your time. We know everybody is busy and that you spent this time with us when you probably, or many of you, still already over Zoomed for the day already. It's really a great gift. So I'm thankful, and we're all thankful on behalf of Alternatives. I will turn it over to Eric to close us out.
Well, I would have said very much the same as what Michelle said. I just really want to thank everybody for giving us that gift of feedback. We got some great ideas today. We got some things to follow up on, and we know we have to have some uncomfortable conversations going forward. We know that we can improve things that we've done for people in the past, and we really want to hear about that. Thank you for getting that conversation started today, and we will definitely continue it. And so just thank you very much. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day.